Hey guys, it's Simon from Ace Podcast Nation, where we've got videos, discussions, and podcasts on pretty much anything you can think of, from films, movies, wrestling, mixed martial arts, mental health, parenting. There's going to be a lot of content coming out. So today I'm joined by a guest. His name's Jacob. You can find him on Twitter, ADHD Father, at ADHD Father UK. Today's show is generally going to be about ADHD, something which is very important to me, as my son was diagnosed with ADHD approximately 3 years ago. So over the next sort of couple of weeks, I'm going to be speaking to various people, charities, people who've got the disorder, so hopefully some experts as well, but they're a bit more difficult to get hold of. So thanks for joining me, Jacob.
My pleasure. Okay. Thank you to be on the show.
It's going to be good fun. Hopefully. Either that, it's just going to be a car crash and everything will go wrong and the stream will go down. But I want to try and tackle some stigmas and I want to discuss a lot of misconceptions people have of ADHD. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So before I start grilling you with questions, just wanted to read out a thing for people who perhaps are not familiar with ADHD and perhaps what it is. So ADHD is a condition that affects 3 times more males than females. The average age of diagnosis is actually 7, which I was very surprised at. I thought it would actually be a bit older than that. But symptoms usually start between 3 and 6 years old. Again, I was very surprised by that. My son was only diagnosed, like I say, when he was, 3 years ago, so sort of 11, 12. ADHD is extremely hard to diagnose and test for, as a lot of the symptoms are typical in all school-age children. ADHD is a condition that makes it difficult to concentrate on tasks, pay attention, sit still, and control impulsive behavior. This often leads to inappropriate remarks or behavior in settings like school, particularly in children. That's what I've read. So that's like a little paragraph from one of the charity websites, just for people to get, if someone's, they're not, they're not familiar with perhaps what it entails. So, Jacob, could you tell me what was life like for you before you were diagnosed with ADHD? Like, what were some of perhaps the issues which you had, or just, I don't know, general, if things were difficult with behavior or...
So I was diagnosed at 13. So I remember sort of most of my schooling, sort of primary school. I can even remember before that having like sort of reports saying, Jacob was really imaginative, got a really good creative mind, but he always seems to daydream, he always seems to switch off, and always had trouble with literacy stuff, so I'm dyslexic as well. So a lot of the stuff, I think, with schooling, they thought it's probably down to being dyslexic back then. And then going into sort of primary school, it was similar stuff. My behaviour, it was normally sort of, I was always a bit of a joker. And I think the knowledge back then was just not very good. ADHD wasn't really a big thing back then. It was sort of, even sort of practitioners thought it was not sort of naughty kids. And I was naughty, but I wasn't naughty enough that I would get in trouble. I was quite cheeky, so I'd do something naughty and then go, sorry. I was always told by my mum, if you've done something naughty, as long as you apologise straight away, you can't. Something really went from that. And then going into secondary school, I started at quite a rough school where I think because I was not very, there was a lot of naughty kids before in front of me that were getting in a lot of trouble. So it's probably just got missed, and the dyslexia sort of took over. So I was in bottom classes, and back then, if you were in the bottom classes, you were normally with the naughty kids. So even if you were quite bright but you struggled with dyslexia, you were just put with the naughty kids in the bottom class. And then I moved to another school, which was quite a sensible school. They were a bit more forward thinking. And that's when I think they were sort of, one of the teachers had said, look, there could be this thing called ADHD. We think it might be that. I wasn't much aware of it. I think I knew he knew my mum, and probably said to her, look, it's something that I would recommend you get tested. And then, so that must have been year 8 into year 9. So before then, I was just getting in trouble for like little things, like just really impulsive things. Like I remember really stupid things, just chucking stuff, just chucking shoes and getting in detentions. Back then, the school I was at were quite strict. So before, you could do loads and you didn't get detentions. Where this school, if you do one thing, you get detentions. So I was getting quite a lot of detentions or after school detentions. But it was mainly just doing stupid things like showing off, really. And then sort of diagnosed. I remember bits about my diagnosis, like having the assessment, but it's quite blurry. It was so long ago. It was mainly just asking weird questions at that time, just thinking, it's a bit weird. And then I think how my mum sort of talks about it, she says, the summer before I was diagnosed, we went away with a friend of ours to France. And she said you could see, she felt there was a massive difference between my behaviour and this boy. He was quite appropriate, probably at dinner times, and was able to be quiet when we're having food or out, where I was just like non-stop. She said the only thing, they had like a fishing lake, and the only thing that kept me still sort of for that time was fishing. A friend, like, they fish, and I think that's when they first noticed, actually the only thing I could concentrate was something like fishing. I remember, I don't know why back then, I never really loved fishing, but it was something that I could really concentrate on, and it was really still. And she said that was the only thing that kept me quiet. And like for about 2 or 3 hours, and I suppose it was my first exposure to like being hyper focused and just fully focused on something. And I remember on the trip, we planned to go to a fishery one day, set an alarm at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was up straight away. And my friend had actually, he was just like, nah, I can't do it. And then, so after that, she'd noticed like my behaviour was very different than another boy, I suppose, because we were away for like 2 weeks. And then obviously the referral went in. And then from then, obviously starting meds. And I think my journey was very different. And I suppose in some ways, I didn't actually mind going on meds. I was like, well, I'll just take them. Took the meds. I remember feeling a bit odd, a bit cloudy for the first sort of, because I was 13, first couple of weeks, maybe a couple of, but then it definitely made a difference. I was able to concentrate a lot more. And then up to the age of I was 21, 22, I didn't really question it. Took my meds. I remember I always explained it to someone, like, why they were like, do the meds work? And I said, for my GCSEs, one day I forgot to take my meds for my, I think, biology exam, and I was kicked out after 10 minutes of the exam for basically just messing about, not just distracting other people. The next day, took my meds, sat for like 2.5 hour exam. So for me, I was like, right, I can start taking my meds because it's affecting things like
the difference yourself. Then I suppose.
Yeah, and it was a bit. I wouldn't say it was scary because I was so young, but I was a bit like, this is massive. If I can't sit, 10 minutes, that's nothing really. And then through jobs, I went into sort of landscape gardening, which was really good for doing exercise, which was great for getting rid of some of that unwanted energy. So I'd come home absolutely exhausted. So I didn't have that extra energy in my body. I'd sleep, work, and then went into pub work where you had to be a bit sort of lively to do that sort of work. So I loved that. I think, and did sort of loads of different pub work, and then went into club work, which, you had to be really energetic, really lively, doing promotion stuff. And it was only when I went into sort of, I'd done club work and promotion stuff for a long time and sort of did all right. Never really got in trouble because I was on meds. And I think you need to be a bit lively in those sort of jobs. And it seemed normal, I suppose. Most of the other people I worked with were sort of very lively, were used to staying up late and doing stuff like that. And it was only when I worked in healthcare, I got to the stage I was like, right, I need to do a proper job. All my family worked in healthcare. I started thinking, actually, those things I was saying, I'd say not in slightly inappropriate jokes, or I'd say stuff which you can say in the pub if someone's, there's always a bit of banter, but if you've got to be serious, you just can't get away with that. And I was getting in little bits of trouble, or saying things or doing things impulsively. And I was like, I need to start actually doing a bit more research about this ADHD stuff, because I've just been complacent of taking a tablet. Then I looked into it, and I found from looking into it, the more and more I learned, it was great. But then the more and more I learned, the more I was sort of, in some ways, expanding, about hyperfocus. I didn't really.
Yeah.
The more I learned about it, the more actually I'm noticing it, and so it feels like actually it's getting more of a problem than it was before, maybe. But yeah, for me, it's like the first bit was not the difficult bit. It was really, it was later on when I actually learned about the ADHD. That's when I sort of struggled more.
Yeah, I suppose when you're younger, the parents or the doctors, they tell you this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, or this is what's going on, this is what you need to take, and you kind of just go along with it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then as you go into adulthood, you think about it more, and like you said, you look into it more. Like I know with my son, he had a lot of, like, not loads and loads of problems, but he had a lot of problems in primary school concentrating, and he was fidgety, and they were getting worse and worse by sort of year 7. His teacher in year 7. His teacher at the end of year 6 sort of said to us, "Look, I really think you should get him tested." And I'd been so against it. Like my wife had sort of said a few times, I do think he's got ADHD. We should take him to someone. And I was just, because I was so ignorant in my view of what it was, I was against it, and I dragged my feet, and I was really stubborn. So we didn't get him tested till end of year 6, start of year 7. And then, like, going into it, it didn't seem to bother him at all. He was happy. He was frustrated that he wasn't able to do what he needed to do in school, but he didn't worry too much about the testing process. However, I'll never forget the day that we went in and they told him, "Yeah, you've got ADHD," and he got official diagnosis. He was devastated. He felt like I don't want to be different, or this and that. And it was only then that it hit me how much that change in, nothing had changed at that point. Being told you've got ADHD, but it made a huge difference to him, just in how he viewed himself.
Yeah, and
being comfortable in his own skin.
In my full-time job at work for a mental health trust, and we notice some people really struggle with that diagnosis of, I don't want to label, I'm me, this is, if you label it, then that's something different to me. I always found, for me, I needed a diagnosis. Well, I felt like late now as an adult, without a diagnosis, I'll be like, well, what is it? I explain it as my brother, he found out he was dyslexic at, I think, like 28, so quite late in life. And he said for him, he was really annoyed because he was like, I was sort of stupid. And actually, I'm just dyslexic. And why, if this was found earlier, then I would have got a lot of help. And actually, I didn't do well in my GCSEs and A levels. And if I would have got that help, I probably would have done well. And he felt really resentful in the schooling system for missing that. And actually, he went on to get a degree in politics and did his masters. And so for him, it showed actually with support, it doesn't really matter if you're dyslexic or not. With the right support, you can get that. And for him, like, without that diagnosis, he wouldn't have got the support to get that extra time or more support with his exams. And I think he would have struggled a lot more. But he said actually with the support and the diagnosis, it really helped him to then get his grades.
Yeah. The thing as well is, like when I was in school, I'm a little bit older than you, a few years, but like if you had people who were diagnosed with ADHD or dyslexia, there was no there. It was get in the bottom set and basically do what you want.
Yeah.
So like there was no help. And, you know, you think of all the people over the years, you know, way back in like the 80s, early 90s, who didn't get that support.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe they never got around to a position where they could have that support until they were sometimes in their 20s. And then you're like 10 years behind everyone else your age in terms of what you want to do, or if you want to go to university or whatever. So
I speak to a lot of people that are diagnosed
glad
at 30, 40, and you know that I think is a bigger struggle, because you have got that answers of like, well, you know, if I knew this, I could have got more support. Like in my employment, they give me quite a lot of support, and I think they understand, because of my ADHD, I might say stupid comments or be a bit more impulsive, or I need a lot. You know, I'm the only one in my open plan office that's got my own desk, that's got massive sort of wall up, and I've got my own ear like defenders. And it looks very strange, but if I didn't tell them I had ADHD, or I didn't have that diagnosis, I wouldn't get that support. And I think, you know, I probably wouldn't have lasted working in the NHS for as long as I did, because they would just be like, you know, this guy hasn't got a reason for some of the things he's actually doing in the office. He's not struggling.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you've got people, obviously with the NHS, they're a bit more aware of it, and familiar with the difficulties that you might have with that. But like, you know, another boss might not be, so you might, because like, do you know, I was thinking about early on, like I was thinking about some of the most common misconceptions about ADHD, and I was reading them, and I was like, this is what I used to think, because it was stuff like this: ADHD just doesn't exist. It's just like a pseudo science. There's just a myth.
I always tell people, I remember working on it was a detox ward for drug and alcohol. So the nurse I was working with was a mental health nurse. She'd done her training. She didn't know about my ADHD, and we were talking about ADHD. I don't know how it came up. And she went, yeah, but it's just bad parenting, isn't it? And I was like, sorry. I was like, so what? And she went, yeah, it's bad parenting. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it's, I'm pretty sure it's not. She was like, yeah, and our mental health trust has an ADHD department, hires, I think, 15, 20 staff. They see over 1,000 people on their caseload. I said, oh, I don't think they would pay for all this if it's just bad parenting. She was like, nah, you know, I don't, you know, it wasn't around when I was younger. And she was a little bit older than me, not much. And I was like, well, I think it was. It's probably just the knowledge wasn't there.
Yeah.
And
that's a scary thing, though, when you hear people talk like that.
And I thought, you know, fair enough if you're Bob who works in, who works in sort of construction, you might have that opinion. No one's ever talked to you about ADHD. If you're a mental health nurse, you should know that stuff. And I think they're better now. I work with a lot of new nurses, and their knowledge is a lot better around, especially ADHD. But yeah, I remember for me, I was like, you know, she didn't know, actually, my mum was, you know, had just won like Nurse of the Year that year for being a mental health nurse. My dad had set up his own business. And
scary though, that NHS.
Yeah, and I don't think that was probably about 6 years ago. And I think things have changed massively since then. Yeah. But I think, you know, that whole rubbish around bad parenting, it doesn't stick with me. You know, I've got great parents. You know, both. You know, I think my ADHD probably comes from mostly my dad's side, and I think he used the creativeness of ADHD to succeed in his career, and did stuff that I think. So he was a barber, and he was one of the first white barbers to bring in the hair designs in England, especially. So he did all the designs. So he used to cut a lot of footballers' hairs before games. He cut Frank Bruno's hair, but then he used that creativeness. I don't think he really liked the cutting the hair. I think it was more the creative patterns he did in the hair. Used that to get into the art industry, and then so he then got a lot of his work. So he put on Banksy's first ever art exhibition. So that was in a council estate in a place in Bristol called Easton. And then, did loads of art stuff, and then used actually, I think the thing I get, I think it's the promotion. You know, I've always done promotion stuff, and I think it's that not being scared, the ADHD, not being scared to actually say stuff. So go, right, I want a photo with you. Can I speak to you? Can I do this? You know, and that's what we use, you know, in some of the stuff I do in my work. I think it's that no fear of just pulling someone over and saying, look, this is what I need. Can I borrow it? Or can we use this? We've got a mental health group. You know, we want to do this. Can we have some money off you? Can we have this footballer come to our football group? Can we have this? And I think that's the bit of ADHD I love, that sort of no fear and passion. The downfall, I suppose, is the hyper-focusedness is an absolute killer for any relationship. Yeah, I think it's, you know, there's I always talk, when I do talks about ADHD, I say, you know, without my ADHD, I wouldn't be as far in the NHS as I am. I run a lot of projects, so as well as seeing people in the community with their mental health struggling and families, I've always done projects. So it might be we set up a mental health festival. It might be I set up a sort of gardening scheme, so people on the wards could take part in a competition, and then that competition would be judged. I've always done projects and stuff like that, and then I think that comes from the sort of impulsiveness to just go, right, I'm not fair. This is what we need to run. We need this amount of money. Oh, we'll get it. And then just sort of blagging it and going, can we have this money? Can we do this? This is great for your PR. I think the great thing about mental health now, there's a lot of businesses that want to tick that box of we help mental health. And so we'll take advantage of those businesses that probably are doing it for PR reasons. And so we might say, right, that's brilliant. You can say you've worked with us and that's great for your PR. We just need some money to help fund this project, or we'll get something out of it for our service users, where traditionally they wouldn't. You know, 10 years ago, people didn't really care about mental health. I suppose the difficult thing is the hyper-focusedness is, it just, I think, yeah, it's just a killer. Like, I think it's great when you've got it. I think I had it for my GCSEs and A levels, and I remember staying up like 13, like all night doing exams. And I remember doing it for my garden here. You know, I remember working through the rain, building like a trench for 7 hours without going through a toilet, having any water, just digging, just completely in the zone. So when you need it, it's great. For my work, it's amazing. When I need it, I can write letters to companies or businesses and they'll be out within sort of 5-10 minutes. These amazing letters that are really passionate. But then when you want to switch off, it's, you know, I suppose the difficulty is, you know, when you've got a kid, it's really, you know, I was just saying, I just had a slight disagreement with my wife today because we were bathing my daughter, and I run a football project, which is, I think with ADHD, you know, some people with ADHD struggle with that anxiety stuff. I've never really struggled with that, but I struggle more with the sort of over confidence massively. So, you know I'm very good at my job. I don't need people to tell me I'm good at my job because my head's big enough, I suppose. I'm lucky I've got a wife that grounds me very much. But I'm running a project which is luckily at the moment doing quite well and getting a lot of press. So it means I'm doing interviews and people going, oh, this is great, you're great, you're great. And then it means, because of the hyper-focus, wanting that extra sort of hit of, oh, you're great, you know, let's keep doing more. I end up staying up late, tweeting companies, tweeting professional footballers, oh, can we do this, and having conversations, because the professional football world never sleeps. So there's always people I can speak to on there, and companies I can chat to, and now with Twitter, Instagram, and loads of social media, it's a crazy one for it. And so I remember just making a phone call like for 5 minutes about having, you know, I'll come home and I can talk for like 2 hours to my wife about this, and she'll be like, look, you haven't asked me how I'm doing, how your daughter is. And it's not because you are a mean person or a nasty person, it's just your brain is like a computer that just wants to vomit all this information out. And for you, it is as important as, you know, I would say when I'm hyper-focused, I focus more, there's more importance on what I'm doing than there is eating, drinking, going to the toilet, speaking to my family. And I suppose that's the scary part of it, It's great when you want to do something that is time focused. The trench, it had to be done. Once it's done, it's done. But if it's a long term thing, like I had it when I first started a job, and I was going in on my days off, and it was a bad employer because they just let me come in. So I was just coming in, doing loads of projects, talking about it, and so there's good bits, and like for me, I had to sort of, there's things we've had to do now because we're just expecting another baby, so I've had to delete my work Twitter off my phone because I was on it all the time.
Yeah, it takes you away from the family.
Yeah,
and I think with ADHD as well, as sometimes I think, or certainly a lot of people won't realize that everyone, when you hear ADHD, you think, or the person who's got it, they can't focus, they're not able to sit and do a task. Whereas depending on the task and depending on the person, it can be the opposite, like you've just explained. Like my son, before he was on medication, he would struggle in lessons, but he plays football for an academy and he plays in goal and he could concentrate for 90 minutes without switching off for a split second. But he would struggle in lessons. And like, for me, you know, before I into it more and stuff, I could never understand that. I was used to say to my wife, how can he possibly have ADHD when he can concentrate for over 90 minutes? Like, and it's like you say, it's hyper focus. It's not even like he's just paying attention to the ball. He's completely in that space. There's nothing else.
For me, like I'm lucky my wife's pretty understanding. She's her knowledge on ADHD is great, but I think I read something 50% of ADHD marriages end in divorce, and that's not even including I don't know what the average normal percentage is. I think it's like 1 in 3, and I can see why, because if your knowledge isn't there, you just look at the person. You know, if she didn't know actually this lady, she'd just go, this guy's really selfish. Why is he always on his phone? Why is he talking about? Why does he not care about family? But it's like a drug in some ways. You're just so and I know a lot of people that say they love being hyper focused because it is like a drug. It's that chasing that energy, and it's amazing to get stuff done. Me personally, I like it for some things. I don't like it for others. For me, it means I don't sleep well, and it's great for short periods. But this football group's been going like a year and a bit that I run, and I would say it's been pretty hyper focused for about a year and a half. So
a long time, isn't it?
It's a long time to be. I remember I was hyper focused.
Just into something constantly.
Yeah, I was hyper focused on one stage on magic. I spent like about £100 on magic tricks.
So my son's doing
and my wife would be in the bath, and I'd come in and I go, pick a card, any card. It'd be like, literally, I'm in the bath. Can you? And I'd be like, all right. What about this one? And she'd be like, and we'd go to like, I remember doing a ward round and chatting to a doctor who was on the ward, and I legit made him think I had this magic ring which was magnetic, and I'd put it underneath the normal watch and it would stop the watch. And he didn't know that, and I was like, I actually think I've got a problem. I think I can stop time. And he was like, oh, okay. And I did the trick to him, and he was legit like fully invested. He was like, oh my god, I think he believed in magic somehow. And I said, like, I was crazy in it, and now couldn't give a shit about magic, couldn't care about it. Got a box of the tricks, but for that I think 5 months, I was mad for it.
My son's been doing that recently.
I don't know where it comes from. There's benefits to it. It means I've done loads of amazing hobbies, but I suppose it's that knowing when. I think now my knowledge is a bit better, so I know when I'm going into a hyper focus. I know I need to make changes. So for me, I have to get rid of the Twitter. I have to sort of my work. I need to make changes, so I can't do anything to do with my football group, to do with work, unless I've done all my other jobs. At home, it's just about making changes that I try and leave my phone out of the room for most of the evening. I know I don't go to bed with the phone in the room. And I'll still wake up at 3 and think, right, I need to text this person. But without those changes I'm making, I'll just be up all night. And I think
it's not healthy then.
yeah, it's not healthy. And I think that's where I think the ADHD,
your body
the negative part of ADHD and how it affects families and wives and kids. I think my dad had side effects, like sort of ADHD traits. And like I remember the annoying bits of it, we would be out and he'd just be chatting to people, promoting his artwork, promoting his shows. And we'd go out for a family walk and we'd be chatting to his mates for like an hour. Every 10 minutes we'd stop and chat to someone. And he'd do the same spiel. And I was like, I remember thinking, it was great. I'm sure he didn't know what he was doing. But as a father, I think, do I want to be that? And I know I've done that. I know I've been with my daughter and taken her to events and sort of ignored her to promote other things I'm doing. I suppose at least in some ways I'm aware of that and I need to make those changes. But yeah, as a parent, it's really difficult anyway, like we were saying earlier. But I think as an ADHD parent, I think it's just a minefield of like not fucking up and trying to keep your kids safe as well as
that's our biggest worry. Like both of us, we worry so much about like him just doing something impulsively, and ended up like doing stuff or something just because. I think I got to say, a lot since you've been taking medication, a lot of his impulse issues tend to be verbal. So we try to give him as much and stuff you shouldn't. You've got to put it up, and I find it difficult to juggle that sort of medium of allowing for the fact that sometimes he can't help it, and other times you've got to say, no, look, you can't be doing that. You can't be saying that. So it is difficult. And when he had his diagnosis, like I say, I dragged my feet for ages, even over the testing.
I'm just going to get my charger.
Go on, crack on.
Yeah, you carry on. I can hear you still.
So then they sort of tried a few different things in school and some help plans and stuff. And they wanted to put him on medication, and I was really, really against. Didn't want to medicate him. I thought he was too young. I didn't think it was necessary. But he went up to year 7 and he was struggling so bad, and he was really finding it difficult for a whole variety of reasons, like anxiety and concentration. Really, really difficult for him. So eventually, I agreed and I said, yeah, okay. And then as soon as he started taking his medication, within a few weeks, everything changed for him. So yeah, when he I eventually sort of agreed, yeah, let's let him go on medication. But the difference within, like, once he got through the first couple of weeks of being on it, he completely did a 360 in school.
I think that's the thing we've said, as a parent, it's really difficult. I think where I am, I think me and my wife watched a documentary on kids with ADHD, and they're talking about does the medication work? Is it properly tested? It's the reason they give it out is because there's a little bit of research, but really, I think the research. So to give out medication, it has to be on signed. It has to go through some sort of research. So I think the main research, the main ADHD medication, the evidence show it works up to, I think it's something like 6 months. That's what the evidence says. After that, there's no evidence that they're aware or that they've done that proves that it works after that. Obviously, for me, I feel like it has worked. So I think in the show they're talking about mindfulness is helpful. And it brought up that conversation of if our daughter had ADHD, would we medicate or what age from? I think a lot of the kids in the documentary were having it from primary school, sort of, what's that, 9, 10. And I was quite surprised in my answer. I was like, no, I don't think I'd want her to be on meds that young. And my wife was like, well, if it's affecting her schooling, that could affect her career and stuff like this. And I said, well, it's difficult. It's really difficult as a parent to know when is the right decision. For me, it felt right when I was at secondary school. I think there wasn't so much pressure, and I know as an adult, SATs don't really, for me, the primary school exams don't really mean anything. The main ones are GCSEs and
No.
A levels. Um, and so I think I was looking at how medication has benefited me. So it's benefited me. I've got a job I can keep. I was able to pass my driving test. I'm able to keep my relationship. I'm able to have good relationships with my family because I think medication holds me. The bad things about medication are it's definitely stunted my growth. So most of the men in my family are plus 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2". Most of them are over 6 foot. I'm the smallest in my family, so I'm 5'10". It's affected. The medication I'm on now is slightly different, but before the medication I was on, I wasn't allowed to drink on any medication. So if I wanted to go out or Christmas or events like that, I wouldn't take medication. So that might affect how that day had gone. It's definitely affected my appetite. It affects my, when we're out, if I'm on medication, I don't eat really. Like most days for lunch, I might just have a packet of crisps, a snack, maybe a bit of fruit, and that's it. And then off meds, I'll eat loads. So and I had to look. When I talk to people about their mental health, we talk about medication, and a lot of people are like, "No, I don't want to take meds." And my way of thinking it, I said, try it without meds, try with. But I think for me, you really have to give meds a good 6 months to a year. I'm on a medication now. I'm probably not that happy with, but I've been on maybe 7, 8 months. So I'm gonna give it probably 4 months more to then go. Actually, I'm gonna go back to my old medication. But I know, and it's been easy for me. I know a lot of people that go, right, side effects are so much, and that's the difference. The side effects for me are loss of appetite. I know a lot of people that struggle with a lot more side effects, so it's difficult. That conversation is very difficult. For me, loss of appetite is something I'm willing to lose. I'm willing to not have an appetite, so I'm able to function.
Yeah.
Some people, the side effects could be a lot worse, where actually you need to say, is it worth taking this medication? And as a parent, I suppose that's the difficult thing. If you've got a son or daughter who's having side effects, it's that I know if they take medication, they might be able to, concentrate more. But then, how has this affected their life? It's a really difficult. There's not one right answer. I think it's about having those open conversations.
It's different for everyone, isn't it? Every child, every person is different, and what works for one person might not work for someone else.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things which, like, so even now, even though I know his medication is helping him massively, and it's helped him do a complete 360 in school. He's in all top sets and this, that, and the other. Is if he forgets to take his medication or something, like on a Saturday or a weekend, or he takes it late, and I see the difference in him in that period, that's a real quick reminder of how much it helps him, because it's so difficult to explain to someone. Like, obviously, because you've been in this situation with yourself, but sometimes when I'd be talking to someone who hasn't been in the situation, or who doesn't know anyone with ADHD closely, they don't realize how hectic and het up things can get very quickly. And when you add in all the testosterone and hormones of a teenage boy, it's fun.
Well, because I had two older brothers, so I was the youngest of three, and I was just all over the place, and I think
that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I think with 3 boys anyway, the family's always difficult, and I think it just got to a stage where my mum was probably just like, right, we need to look at this, because you can maybe get away with it when you're primary school or younger than that. But I think when you start getting secondary school, and there is that change in, becoming a young adult, what things need to change really. And I think it's so difficult for the young person, but also the parent. And I think The difference is now, I suppose, I've been on meds for nearly 20 years, 20 years. So like, it's crazy. And like, I suppose the difference is I used to notice those days when I didn't take meds. I remember being young, and I would not take meds on the weekend, and I'd just eat. For me, I'd just eat and eat and eat, and it'd be amazing. In some ways, I'd have like a fry up, like a massive fry up, then I'd have snacks, then I'd like mid lunch, then I'd have tea. I'd just have eat, and then now I don't know, because I've been on meds for so long, their effect is not as good as it used to be. So this medication I'm on now, if I don't take it for a day, it's still in my system. So the good thing is I can forget a day with this new medication I'm on. It's still in the system, but then you get complacent in some way because it's still in my system. I don't know now what it's like to be off meds fully. I remember at Christmas they were like, right, you're going to be like this first time in 5 years. I've been off work for 10 days over Christmas. You need to take a medication break to see what you're like off medication. I was like, yeah, that's great, but I've got a child. I lasted one day before going back on meds because it's fine if you don't have a child to look after, but I'm responsible for someone's life, and like, so when we talk about risks earlier, driving off meds, I wouldn't. For me, I just couldn't do that. So then I had to expect my wife to drive for 10 days over Christmas. Also, I noticed after like the first 2 days, I was just really doing that annoying stuff of, for me, it's constantly seeking, it's not even approval, it's just going, if I'm bored, I'll just say to her, you all right? You all right? You all right? How's things? You all right? Because I'm bored, I want something to entertain me. So if that's just annoying my wife, I was doing that. And I was like, that's fine when you're young, but when you've got a child and your wife's being up all night and then all day with a child, I just felt it wasn't fair for me to have a medication break. And so that's the difficult thing now. It's great having a child, but you just don't have that time to be off meds.
Yeah.
See what is Jacob like off meds as a 32-year-old, 31-year-old guy. Last time I had a proper medication break was probably about 4 years ago. So, I'd love to have it, but it's just, you just can't do it with kids. And so that's the difference thing, I think, being a child. I used to love having those breaks because it'd be exciting and also scary. You'd see what you like. And it was like, I like that Jacob a little bit, but I quite like the Jacob on meds as well. It's nice to have him for a weekend, but any longer, I would just annoy people so much.
So, so say like tomorrow morning, you didn't take your medication. What's the difference between how you feel this morning and how you'd feel tomorrow without your medication?
Right. So the medication I'm on, it's a similar sort of. They told me it's a similar effect as an antidepressant. So you take it every day and it's in your system and it builds up and builds up and builds up. So if I did forget to take it for a day, it's still in my system. Okay. There's other benefits to it. I can drink whilst on the medication. Where before my original medication, if I drunk, it would just be horrendous. It'd be like 1 pint would be the equivalent of 4 or 5 pints, and it would be the nearest. I've never taken drugs, but I would imagine it's the nearest to taking drugs. Your head spin. It's a horrible drunkenness. So this one's quite user friendly. If I forget it, it's out of the system. But I suppose I noticed when I did the last break over Christmas, I didn't take it for 2 days, so it would have slightly been out of my system. And I was just annoying. I was really impulsive, really unthoughtful, and it's fine to an extent. But I think, like, you'll know yourself, having a kid is just grueling. Absolutely grueling. There's no rest, and so I remember like the second day, I was just like, I felt like I had reverted to a child role, and my wife was looking after me and my baby. So I was like, I can't do this as a dad. I think dads are we can play the fun character a lot of the time, but I think there's fun, and we can also play the child character sometimes. But I think to do it full time, I think she would just leave me. I honestly think if I was on meds, I think she would probably have left me a long time ago, because I think me off meds is a very selfish. It can be, for me, I can seem selfish. I don't think I am selfish. I think I seem selfish and seem very so impulsive that it just takes over. That I remember, this is being on meds. I remember saying to someone, I did when I first started the Twitter page. It was because there was no information out there for dads with ADHD, and I remember being like, oh, this is really scary. I don't know, like there should be some little handbook or what to expect. So then I started doing like little tips. So stuff like someone told me about to build a routine. It takes 3 months. So if I want to start brushing my teeth with my left hand, and I normally use my right hand, I have to brush my teeth for 3 months before my head starts to realize actually this is the normal way to do it. So that's why you get gym memberships that the first 3 months are discounted, because they recommend after that 3 months we've got you.
Yeah.
Most people after a month don't carry on because they don't keep it up for 3 months. So I thought, well, my daughter's due in 6 months. So after 6 months before she was even born, we started locking my medication away. So by the time she was born and then old enough to get to my meds, the routine is they were always locked away.
Yeah.
So that's why we set up the Twitter account. But then like there was loads of things, like I remember when she was born, and I think especially when you're first born, your wife and any mum is hyper focused on safety. I think that's a natural thing for a mother to be like. And then with me, with ADHD, I'm hyper focused on impulsivity, and that's even on meds. And I remember having the newborn baby. I think she must have been a couple of weeks. I'm walking down the stairs like, hey, and like the banister's not that high, and my wife was just like, oh my god, I feel like you're gonna drop it down the stairs. Like, I think I was just like, she was like, just hold her close to you while you're walking down the stairs. I was like, nah, it's fun, it's great, she loves it. And she was just like, you need to understand, like, I think dads anyway struggle with it, but especially ADHD dads, that fear of our impulsivity around driving and stuff like that. So with a newborn child, your risks is just, you're not focused on risk. And so I was doing not really risky things, but just doing stupid things, like not thinking, right, if I hold this baby stupidly and walking down the stairs, I could slip, and then the baby's going to be really hurt instead of just holding the baby normally. So I remember when our daughter was born, like just a few issues that we were talking about, like risk. Like my view of risk is just completely different than my wife's, and especially with the ADHD, my view of risk is I'll walk across the zebra crossing, because the zebra crossing, the car's got to stop. Instead of going, actually, I'll stop, wait for the car to stop, then I'll cross. I'll be like, no, it's not. It will cross, it will stop. And those arguments still happen with me and my wife, or disagreements. But yeah, I think that's the thing. As a parent of someone with ADHD, I think my mum probably worries about my risk around. I remember I got a moped recently because I changed jobs. I was like, actually, it's cheaper for me to run a moped than drive. And all my family were like, you're going to crash, you're going to lose your license, you're going to, I remember my dad saying, one of my friends, he died when he was your age. He died he was 18, he died on a moped accident. I said, yeah, but back then, did you have to wear a helmet? And he was like, no. I was like, well, that's half the battle. And I remember, I said to him, look, I can understand a lot of people look at what I'm like in my day-to-day life and go, I would not have him on a moped. But for me, I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to test, actually, can I be focused? And there's been a few hairy moments, but I think I always cycled, so I was always used to a bit of risk whilst on the road. So for me, it wasn't too bad. But I remember my parents my dad saying to me, right, you're not going to do it. And I said, the thing is, Dad, I'm 30, I'm married, I've got my own house. What can you do as a parent? And he was like, well, right, I'm telling your nan. I was like, what's she going to do? I was like, that's not going to work. And he was like, well, I feel like as a parent, I need to have this conversation. And I said, I appreciate it. It was a nice gesture. But I suppose as a parent, that's that risk of, is my son or daughter going to make these, risky decisions? I'm lucky I've made a lot of risky decisions, but they've never put me in danger seriously. They've just been mainly, my main risk is just impulsivity around saying stupid stuff. But yeah, as a parent, it's difficult. It's really difficult as a parent with ADHD. As a parent without, and a son or daughter with ADHD, it's just like, yeah, it's a completely different ball game, and then put into the mix siblings and their knowledge of ADHD, and also even if the brothers or sisters have great knowledge, I remember my brothers didn't get, like, they were like, "I love you, but you're getting a lot more, getting away with a lot more than we were." If that's because of ADHD or not. So there was at times a bit of arguments around how come he's allowed to do it because he's got ADHD, and then arguments around that. And there's probably
Yeah,
still now, there's probably comments that they'll go, fucking hell, what like on the family WhatsApp. I think I'm probably the one that posts the most, and I'm aware my brother doesn't post much of his kids, probably because I'm posting 3 photos a day going, look, my daughter's just had a poo, check this poo out, or like mainly just crazy stuff like that. So it's yeah, it's difficult.
yeah. I think like for I can only imagine, but like when you've got ADHD, you're trying to manage your own impulsivity, if you like, and then if you've got to then cater in the risks of your daughter as well as the risks for yourself, it's like it's an extra risk. So for people looking from, like, obviously in your head, you know, you're fine walking down the stairs with the baby, but to other people, they're thinking a double the risk type
Yeah,
thing, if you know
yeah.
what I mean.
And
So
it's
it's
really
a bit of a
difficult.
weird one, but it's like I say, it's you can't, like with, for instance, with my son, I tried to let him learn by his own mistakes because that's the only way you do learn is by making mistakes and then learning from them. Uh, but he does seem to struggle with verbal impulsivity. If I tell him off or my wife tells him off, his first thought, or he's not even his first thought, his first reaction is to go on the defensive and say, "No, I wasn't," or "No, I wouldn't," "No, you know, something like that," or he'll say something a bit rude. Whereas physically, I don't think he does too much like physical impulsive things, which might sort of put him in danger or something like that. But he does seem to very much, even with the medication, and you know, teenager as well. You know, it's
Yeah,
just, you know, grumpy, moany
it's
teenager.
tricky. I think a really good thing is being able to reflect. I think everything I say impulsive. If I say, something that can be seen. I'm very lucky. My team I work with are very understanding, because I can say stuff that can be, if you didn't know me or didn't know my team, you'd be like, "Oh, this guy's really rude sometimes. He's saying this thing that could be quite hurtful." I'm lucky. I've got an amazing team that understand that. Like, what I'm saying doesn't come from that. But then, if I say a comment, I will think about it. If I know, there's a few things I've said, last week, that I'll really reflect on that, and I probably over reflect in some ways and think, I definitely I shouldn't have said that. I've really let myself down there. I think if you can then go, right, I'm reflected on it and then apologize or do, you know, it's great in work stuff. For me, I'm lucky. I don't see everyone every day, so I'm able to have a couple of days to calm down and go, right, I shouldn't have said that. I was bang out of order. Da, da, da. And in relationship, I was chatting to my wife earlier, and she said, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have phoned work whilst the baby's still awake. And I was like, yeah, but I was getting the milk. It made no difference. And she was like, you shouldn't have done it. Then I was like, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
but no, honestly, it made no difference. You wouldn't have known if you couldn't hear. And I know deep down she's chatting right. I'm chatting absolute rubbish. I shouldn't be phoning my work whilst my baby's awake. It can wait a quarter of an hour until she's asleep.
Yeah,
And
of
then I was
course.
going to go, right, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. And it's, as a child, I think it's really difficult to do that. I think as an adult, it's a learning thing. Just like I said at the very beginning, my mum always said, if you can apologise straight away, that's great. And I suppose in some ways it gets you out of trouble quickly. But then if you're not reflecting on that, then you'll do it again. I think what you're saying about your son learning from his mistakes, I suppose learning from your impulses and learning the things. I'd love to say, well, at 32, I clearly haven't learned much if it's about learning about impulsive, because I'm still saying it. I suppose it's about learning how to react once you said something, because with ADHD, you're always going to say, I'm never going to say. I remember having a chat with a boss, and she said, "You're not going to do that again, are you?" And I said, "I'll be honest, I probably will, but I won't do it on purpose. Like, it's not. I'm not doing it because I mean to. I'll do it because it's just impulsive. But just know, if I have done it again, when we have this conversation, I'll be really apologetic about it. And I know I shouldn't have done it, but I'll be honest, I probably will do it again." So it's about being honest and going, actually, I know when I'm good, I'm great. When I'm not good, I can be. It's probably seen as quite rude, uh, impulsive, say stuff that can be quite nasty. But I'm lucky my team, I suppose, we're in employment, them knowing what I struggle with. And actually, I'm able to go a couple of days later, look, pull that person and say, look, I shouldn't have said that. It didn't come from, it wasn't me. I don't blame it on my ADHD all the time, but I say, it was just me being impulsive. Obviously, I don't mean that. And actually, some of the stuff I've said in the past, I've been like, why did I say that? It's a really horrible thing to say to someone who is a friend of mine. Uh, it's like when someone goes, "Oh, it's banter, but you're fat," or "It's only banter." I suppose it's not banter; it's bullying. And I suppose that's the thing. The impulsivity stuff, it just comes out like it's like that inner voice that when that says that those comments that you would never say out in person, but the ADHD will say it out in person. I remember I said in the team meeting recently, there was a doctor who was visiting 3 people that day, which for most nurses, that's the normal day. Most of our staff will see 4 or 5 people a day. And some of the staff were like, "Oh, he's got a busy day today. He's seeing 3 people." And I was like, "Oh yeah, he's like a normal staff, but gets paid a lot more and seeing a lot less people." Yeah, I suppose he is like a normal staff, but not really at all. And I'm lucky he wasn't there, because he would have, he could have gone, right.
Wouldn't have been impressed.
Yeah, he really pissed off. He was just taking the piss out. And luckily, they get that I don't mean it, and I do appreciate him and all that stuff. But yeah, that's the difficult thing. I suppose at school you can get away with that in some ways. I suppose when it's employment,
you're looking at
we
a
were
bit
saying
more.
earlier, I'm lucky I've got a good employer. I know a lot of people with ADHD have got shocking ones, and they're not well looked after.
Yeah, right. Jacob, I'm gonna have to go in a minute because my laptops are out to run out of battery.
No, lovely chatting
But
to
I
you.
would, if you're up for it, I would like to get you on again so we
Yeah.
can chat some more. And I would, because like I say, I want to do a few different shows on different stuff, and mental health and ADHD. But both of them I want to really cover and talk about in depth. So like, it'd be good to do it over a few different shows and go into
definitely.
some different aspects for it, if you're up for it.
Yeah, no, that'd be brilliant. I'll be up for that.
Cool. Thanks for coming on. Obviously, I'll arrange with you when we can do it again. Just tell the people what's your Twitter or your social media tags.
So Twitter and Instagram is at ADHD Father UK. If you need any tips, or you just got some ideas or anything like that, or you think, I spoke to a few people's kids, and said, actually, this is what I've used my ADHD for my work, and the good parts of ADHD for my work, and actually it's made me succeed in doing quite well. But yeah, follow me at ADHD Father UK.
Cool. I'm Simon. This has been AceCast number 1, and I will see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Hi guys. Thanks for watching that show with Jacob. It was loads of fun. My anxiety levels were through the roof last couple of days. I've been a bit nervous. I hope that didn't spoil it too much, but I'll get used to it and I'll become more relaxed speaking to you bunch of humans. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, spread the word. I'm going to be doing a few more shows with Jacob about mental health, varying different subjects, not just ADHD. It's something which is important to both of us. Uh, I'm also going to be doing some more interviews with some guests, which should be a load of fun. Doing some football, some wrestling, some MMA. Basically, anything we can think of which is interesting to talk about, we're going to do it. Uh, as I say, like, share, subscribe. Come follow me on acecast_nation on Twitter. Come say hi, and I'm always open to feedback and suggestions on new shows. Cheers, guys. Thanks for joining us.